So let me talk to you just for a little bit about choosing the right grass type, and I'm going to show you what I've done on my lawn to maybe help you think through your decision. Now I'm dealing primarily with warm season grasses, but we can also talk a little bit about cool season grasses as well in this video. Let's get started right now. I'm Jason Creel and this is the Lawn Care Life. Let me let you see my yard. Look at this yard. I mean, look at this beautiful grass. I mean, have you ever in your life seen something so beautiful? Actually, this was just graded out the other day, and I've got several acres here, and you can, I can show you, some of you that follow the channel know the transformation that took place, but this was basically plugged with Bermuda sod, and it's filled in, looks pretty nice. Well, still had some work going on at the house and had this graded out, and I just ordered some Bermuda and Zoysia. So I'm going to talk to you about Bermuda and Zoysia. We're going to talk Centipede, St. Augustine. We're going to talk about some cool season grasses and some of the factors you need to consider when choosing your grass type. So, and again, I want to talk to you about it, but also show you what I've done to help you see that I'm practicing while I do it. So the landscapers out there, and I'll do weed control and fertilization, landscapers will be disgusted with this sod job. I mean, look at it. It's just one pallet of emerald zoysia, and what I had was these little oak trees, and the Bermuda, like you can see, is spreading all around, but it wasn't growing in this area. You see all these bald patches. Well, I decided that I was going to put some emerald zoysia right here, but this is not the only thing that I did with it. I just had one pallet, and I wanted to make the most of it. So, yeah, the pattern's not great. It's not even. What I'm going to probably do is take a machete and make this, cut this around to make it a more symmetrical pattern, and just do mulch or pine straw around these trees. But the idea is to get the emerald zoysia to fill in these areas where it's not getting a lot of sun. So here's the mistake I see people make a lot. If the Bermuda was going to grow right here, it probably already would have done so, okay? And so if it's not grown here yet, and like I said, because this was all plugged, this was actually trees a few years ago, and there was no discernible grass whatsoever over here. So this all filled in nicely, and it just kind of stopped growing right here as you got close to the trees. So what I see homeowners do oftentimes, they'll take it and they'll say, well, maybe I need to put some more Bermuda seed out here, or maybe I need go buy some Bermuda sod and put out here. And I try to tell them, I was like, listen, if that Bermuda right there was gonna grow right here, it would have already done so, okay? And it basically tells you where it's gonna stop growing. You see, Bermuda, 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 and then what happens? Thin Bermuda and moss and all kind of issues. So if you want something that's gonna blend in with the Bermuda, but is more shade tolerant, then I would recommend the emerald zoysia or the Zorro zoysia. And I also have some Zorro zoysia, and looking at them, I can't tell the difference. But it's gonna be your finer blade zoysia grasses are gonna be about as good as we have to offer in the South for areas that have some shade. Now again, I tell people, it's not gonna grow in a closet. You can't just put it out there with absolutely no sunlight. And you notice the term we use is shade tolerant. It doesn't mean it likes shade, it just tolerates it better. So, but this is gonna get some sun, and I actually feel really confident about this grass. All right, and something else to mention about this, you'll notice that I've put this end to end because zoysia spreads extremely slow. So it literally might, to go from there to over here where the Bermuda starts filling back in again, I mean, it might take 5 years. I mean, what I may end up doing is getting a little bit more, or taking some plugs out of this and putting in here. And I really just got to see how far the Bermuda, where the Bermuda will fill in. It may get enough sun to do well in this area. So I did that with the zoysia, and then I took some zoysia over here. So this is getting blocked by the house as well as those oak trees, so it's not getting full sun either. And so I took one row. Again, I'm working with one pallet of zoysia, and I thought this is going to be my defining row for this landscape bed. Okay, the bed needs some help. I got to kill off some of the ryegrass and the weeds, but I'm thinking I want a defined edge, and I don't want some thin Bermuda over here as my defined edge. I want some thick emerald zoysia that I can take my trimmer and make a nice crisp edge. So I basically laid the zoysia out, one row of it, to be my edge. Again, if I could just had free sod, unlimited free sod, I would just sod this zoysia all the way to connect to that zoysia. Would all be zoysia, but that would be expensive. So I'm taking a slow path here, just getting my edge defined with thick zoysia. The zoysia may spread this way. There may be some Bermuda in the between, but the emerald and the Bermuda are gonna look okay. So full sun, you know, Bermuda is great. Bermuda has some advantages. If you want something that's gonna spread very fast, then Bermuda is great. So I did the same thing over here. So again, this is all work in progress. I'm just showing you what it looks like. So azalea bush, azalea bush, azalea bush, hydrangea, weeds all in there, grass that I've sprayed. I'm gonna put some mulch down or pine straw, and I've defined the border with the emerald zoysia because I'm afraid this area is also not gonna get full sun, and I didn't want thin Bermuda being my border. I want a thick, healthy grass for my border. Now, as you get out here, you get more sunlight. Look what we did. It's Bermuda, okay? Now this is, Bermuda was put out yesterday, I believe it was, and you can see where we have spaced it out. Again, if sod was free and it just had free labor, we'd just sod it solid and be done with it. But this is actually much closer together than what I've done most of my yard with the sod. This is 2 pallets of Bermuda, and it's supposed to rain a lot this week, so I'm excited about that. But I can walk through here and step on it when it gets wet and press it down in the mud. And I think by doing this, you know, early in the year, it's gonna have time to root. And by the summer, this will probably fill in and be basically solid Bermuda. If I spread the zoysia out this far apart, you're looking at possibly 3 years for it to fill in. I'm not joking. I mean, sometimes in perfect conditions, maybe you can make it go faster, but it is extremely slow, where I could throw this out like this in May, and I bet you by July I could have it just about touching each other if I had irrigation and everything. So anyway, I'm putting it out in March, and again, I think by July or August, I should have a solid backyard back here. Back to the question at hand, choosing the right kind of grass. Full sun, Bermuda. You got some shade issues, go with the zoysia. The Zorro or the emerald is going to be a better option if it's sure enough a shade issue. So for instance, look at these crepe myrtles here, and this is Zorro zoysia. Again, looks very similar to the emerald zoysia. The wider blade zoysias, the ones I see a lot in my area, is the Z52. Dealt with some other ones. They're not as shade tolerant as Zorro or emerald zoysia, but they're much more shade tolerant than Bermuda. One thing also worth understanding is don't try to force a cool season grass in a warm season area or vice versa. Now you have some areas like if you get up, I'm in the Birmingham, Alabama market. If you get North Alabama on into Tennessee, Kentucky, you get in these transition zones where you can, in some ways it's not ideal necessarily for cool season grass or warm season grass, but you can make either one of them work in those situations. I've seen people try to grow fescue in our area, and on occasion you'll see one that looks okay if it's in the shade, but typically they're not able to handle the hot humid summer. So in the same way, you wouldn't want to put a warm season grass like Bermuda if you live up in the Midwest or in the North, because it's not designed for that. It's not going to do very well in those situations. And I would think at best, I've heard people that plant a zoysia that live further north, and it's dormant so long they get very few green months out of their zoysia lawn. Now I'm walking to some other grass types as I talk to you here, but one of the advantages of zoysia, it does grow extremely thick. It's not as drought tolerant as Bermuda, so that's something else to consider. If you don't have irrigation, then putting out your Bermuda, I mean, once it gets rooted, it's virtually impossible to kill. I mean, unless you just attempt, you know, trying to kill it. Obviously you can, but even then it can be difficult. But it's going to be extremely drought tolerant, because we had an epic drought about 5 years ago, and I don't know if I saw a single Bermuda yard get damaged. But the zoysia is not going to be quite as drought tolerant, and it's going to be much slower to recover from drought damage. So my zoysia is a little bit in a shaded area, so I'm not quite as concerned about it, but if you have zoysia out in the full sun and no irrigation, it's something you may want to keep an eye on. Don't let it get fully brown on you in the summer, because even if it's not dead, it's going to take a while to bounce back. Now, this is actually, I think, part of my property. I'm right on the side of the road here, so I'm not 100% sure, but you can see some of these cool season grasses. They love the spring weather. So the weather getting up in the 70s, and they just thrive. Underneath that is actually centipede grass. And centipede, you know, people do call it lazy man's grass. Right now it's still mostly dormant. Lazy man's grass in the sense that you can not do chemical treatments and just have a good mowing pattern where you mow it weekly at a low height, inch and a half, something like that. And if you keep it mowed frequently, it can actually look pretty good and does a decent job of choking out weeds. Where Bermuda, you know, you really need a treatment program on your Bermuda lawns to have it looking good. It's going to get absolutely taken over with weeds and crabgrass, most likely. Zoysia, again, grows thicker, does a little bit better job choking out weeds. But still, obviously, if you spray it and you're fertilizing, you're going to get a thicker, healthier lawn. I do have a little St. Augustine, so I'm going to walk over here and show you that as well. Just worth mentioning, sometimes people get this confused with centipede grass. This is actually carpet grass. Don't plant that in your lawn. We use a product called Celsius to kill carpet grass out of our desirable grasses. So your centipede and your St. Augustine are going to do a little bit better, seemingly in the more coastal areas. They're not going to tolerate a cold winter as well as a Bermuda or Zoysia, and may get some damage from a late frost. And maybe part of that is, as you see here, I'm early March, and you can see this St. Augustine grass. I just put a few pieces out here underneath this tree, doing basically the same thing I did with the Zoysia, but I did St. Augustine in this area. And it started to spread last year. I'm hoping it'll spread even more this year. But you know, the St. Augustine, you can see it's already got a lot of green color in it. Now, we got up near 80 degrees several days this week. But now, if we go get a real cold night where it gets down into 20s, you may have a little damage to your St. Augustine. Your centipede can do the same thing and take them a little time to bounce back. I'm not really concerned about it dying, but just it may discolor it if we get a freeze. Now you can compare that with the Bermuda grass, which is still mostly dormant. If it freezes next week, no big deal. All right, so from a maintenance standpoint, I would say centipede probably is your lowest maintenance. You don't, we have a treatment program for centipede lawns, but if you did nothing and mow it on a regular schedule and nice and tight and low, you can have a decent looking centipede lawn without necessarily a lot of fertilizer, a lot of chemicals, things like that. Those are going to obviously help keep weeds out, going to help it be thicker and healthier, but it's not necessary to have a decent looking lawn. On the opposite extreme to me is the Bermuda lawns. Again, you're going to have some sort of treatment program. I don't know if I've ever seen a decent looking Bermuda yard that wasn't being treated in some way, because the grass doesn't grow as thick, and in the wintertime, if you scalp it low, you can see the bare dirt, and all that bare room is opportunity for weeds to grow. Where like Zoysia, like I said, is much thicker, it chokes out the weeds a lot better. If you got some shade issues, then like I said, your emerald Zoysia, your Zorro are going to be great for that. Not going to grow in pure shade, not going to love the shade, but they're going to be probably your best options in the south. Of course, your cool season grasses, if you're in an area that can handle those, typically do pretty well in the shade also. St. Augustine would probably be next on the shade tolerance, but you need more mild winters for that to thrive. It doesn't necessarily, again, mean that it's going to love the shade, but can tolerate it. And then you got your other types of Zorros, like your wider blade, Z52s, Myers, Zoysia, and things like that. They're also going to do okay in shade, and maybe some partial shade. Centipede would be, again, needs sunlight, but it would handle shade better than Bermuda. And in Bermuda, as we demonstrated earlier, is basically just dead last on shade. It needs full sun. Sure enough, full sun, because even if you got partial sun, it's going to be thin and just not look good. So make sure you understand what kind of grass you need in your situation. Don't try to force Bermuda in an area where we need Zoysia. If you want something that's going to spread super fast and got full sun, hey, Bermuda's awesome. If you want to plug a Zoysia lawn and want it to spread, hope you got 5 years or so to wait, because it's going to take near forever. And I actually did that in my area. I threw some out under a big tree, spaced it way out, probably 10 feet between pieces. And in my mind, I'm just thinking it literally might take 10 years for that to fill in. But I want to get it started, press it down in the mud when it rains, and over time it'll fill in. You know, I'm not in a hurry, but I didn't want to spend $5,000 sodding underneath a giant oak tree. I wanted to spend about $20 and just wait on it to spread. Appreciate you guys watching the video. Let me hear from you in the comments. Some of you guys may have something to add, or maybe can chime in on the cool season grasses, which one of those is best in which situation, or want to add something what I said about the warm season grasses. I'm Jason Krill. There's over 800 videos on the channel. I encourage you to subscribe or go check out the other videos. If you want to get into weed control and fertilization business or lawn care business period, you can go to lawncarelife.com. That's my website. A lot of resources available for you there, including video courses, documents, programs, pricing charts, all kind of stuff. lawncarelife.com. I'll see you guys in the next video.